Okay, so let's just unpack this right away because I know exactly how you are feeling right now.
Yeah.
It is Saturday, March 7th, 2026, and I really want you to take a hard look around at your professional life today. Let's think back to late 2022, early 2023. Remember all those promises?
Oh, the utopia.
Right, we were all told that artificial intelligence was going to usher in this glorious, stress-free utopia for the knowledge worker. I mean, the 4-day work week was supposed to be completely inevitable by now.
That was the narrative, definitely.
We were going to do our jobs in half the time, kick our feet up, and spend the rest of our days, I don't know, learning to bake sourdough or painting watercolors or something. But let's be real with each other right now. Are you working less? Because I am certainly not. In fact, I am so exhausted. I feel like I'm doing 10 times the output I was doing 3 years ago. My paycheck hasn't moved a single cent. And the baseline expectations at my company are just completely through the roof.
They really are.
It just feels like I'm sprinting frantically inside this giant, glowing electric hamster wheel, and it's completely powered by an AI brain, while my actual purchasing power just flatlines.
It is an incredibly frustrating place to be. And honestly, that exhaustion you are feeling, it's entirely valid.
It doesn't feel valid. It feels like I'm failing.
No, you're not failing. It's the reality for millions of professionals right now who are just caught in the crosshairs of a massive economic shift. What you're describing is the default state for what our source material today calls the dumb money.
Okay, ouch.
Well, I want to be clear, that is not an insult to your intelligence at all. In the financial world, dumb money just refers to capital, or in this case, human labor, that is playing by an old set of rules that have completely expired.
Okay. Fair.
But today, we are going to architect a way out. That is our mission for this deep dive. We are going to help you escape that infinite hamster wheel.
Yeah.
We're pulling from a newly uncovered forensic macro analysis and career playbook from the Smart Money Wisdoms. Specifically, we're looking at episode 164 of their files, which is titled The AI Productivity Paradox.
The AI productivity paradox?
Yes.
Okay.
And we're going to decode the exact roadmap the Smart Money is using to not just survive this moment, but to safely transition from selling commoditized time to selling highly valued outcomes.
I think we all desperately need that roadmap because right now, for me and for you listening, the math just isn't mathing.
No, it's not.
The harder I work and the more AI tools I integrate into my workflow to speed things up, the poorer and more insecure I actually feel.
Yeah.
There is this creeping dread that even though I'm producing mathematically more value for my company, my specific seat at the table is less secure than it has ever been.
What's fascinating here is that you haven't failed at your job. You have just fallen victim to a very old economic principle. The authors of the Smart Money Wisdoms anchor this entire productivity paradox in something called the Jevons paradox.
The Jevons paradox.
Right. It's the absolute core of why your 10x output hasn't bought you a ticket to the beach.
Okay, I've heard the term thrown around mostly in energy sectors, I think. But how does that apply to me sitting at my desk churning out slide decks and reports?
To understand it, we actually have to go back a bit, back to 1865.
Okay, time travel.
Bear with me. William Stanley Jevons was an English economist, and he was observing the coal industry. At the time, someone had just invented a new, highly efficient steam engine.
Right.
The logical assumption everyone made was, great, this engine uses half the coal to do the exact same amount of work, so our society's total coal consumption is going to plummet.
Makes sense. You need less fuel, you buy less fuel.
Exactly. But Jevons noticed the exact opposite happened. Because the engine was so efficient, it made steam power incredibly cheap and highly profitable.
Oh.
Suddenly, people were putting steam engines in absolutely everything: factories, trains, ships. The efficiency didn't decrease the demand for coal.
It caused coal consumption to completely explode.
Precisely.
Oh, wow. Okay, I see exactly where this is going now. When a technology makes a resource more efficient, society doesn't use less of it. We demand infinitely more of it.
You got it. Now apply that to your workflow today. Let's say you used to write one comprehensive market analysis report a week, and it took you 40 hours of intense focus.
Which it absolutely did.
Right. But now you have an AI copilot. You can generate a report of the exact same quality in 4 hours. The logical assumption from back in 2023 was that you get to go home on Tuesday.
Tuesday afternoon, catching a matinee.
But the corporate reality of 2026 is that the baseline expectation just shifted. Your boss doesn't want you to go home. Your boss looks at you and says, why aren't you writing 10 reports a week?
Yeah. The demand for digital cognitive labor expanded to consume the newly created efficiency.
Exactly.
That perfectly explains the treadmill feeling. Doing more work with AI isn't a path to wealth or freedom at all. It is just a faster treadmill. And honestly, it feels like it's actively deflating the value of my actual labor.
It is deflating it rapidly. The source material refers to this as the democratization of expertise.
The democratization of expertise.
Think about the previous few decades. Knowledge workers were paid a massive premium because of scarcity. If you could generate an expert-level financial model, or design a complex ad campaign, or write a dense block of Python code, you commanded a very high salary.
Because it was hard to do.
Right. Acquiring those skills took years of specialized education,
Yeah.
and executing them took a lot of time. Your specialized cognitive process was a very scarce commodity.
But today, that scarcity is completely gone. I mean, anyone with an internet connection has access to an infinite intelligence engine for $20 a month. The AI essentially took the marginal cost of creating those digital assets down to zero.
Down to zero. And corporations are not oblivious to this fact. They are realizing that if the digital creation of text, code, and media essentially costs nothing, they absolutely should not be paying a premium hourly rate just for someone to execute those tasks.
Right.
The market value of traditional process-driven execution is just crashing.
You know, the authors of the analysis used this incredibly vivid analogy to describe this that just hit me right in the chest when I read it.
The anvil.
The anvil, yes. They said to imagine this massive, heavy, black iron anvil, and on the side of this anvil, in glowing electric cyan letters, it says zero-cost AI.
What an image.
Right. Now imagine that heavy iron anvil slamming downward, falling from the sky, and crashing directly onto a glowing antique gold coin. And printed on that coin, it says your hourly rate.
It just smashes it.
It completely smashes the coin into a million fractured flying shards. That is exactly what it feels like to be an employee right now. The complete and total death of wages based on time.
It's a brutal image, but it's an entirely accurate representation of the macroeconomic reality right now.
Yeah.
This is the true deflation of human labor. And actually, it brings us to a really critical concept the authors reference from their broader economic research, the ghost GDP trap.
Right, the ghost GDP trap. I saw that term in the brief, but they only touched on it. What exactly is that, and how does it relate to this crushed gold coin of my salary?
So, ghost GDP refers to the illusion of economic growth in a digital economy where the cost of goods is dropping to zero.
Okay.
Think about it. The actual utility and productivity of our society right now is exploding. We are generating billions of lines of code, millions of articles, endless marketing media. The gross domestic product in terms of raw digital output is skyrocketing.
Because the bots are just churning it out 24/7.
Exactly. But because the marginal cost of all that output is basically zero, it does not translate into higher wages for the middle class.
So the pie is getting infinitely bigger, but it's completely made of air.
Yes, it's a ghost.
Yeah.
And here's the trap. While the digital labor you sell is deflating in value, the physical things you need to buy to survive,
Housing, energy, food.
housing, energy, food, healthcare, all of those are heavily constrained by physical reality, and they continue to inflate in cost.
So you are caught in a vice grip.
You cannot build wealth if the primary asset you sell, which is your execution time, is deflating while your actual cost of living is inflating.
Okay, that is genuinely terrifying when you lay it out like that. But let's pivot. I want to figure out how the smart money is avoiding this trap. Because if execution is cheap, if the anvil has already crushed my hourly rate, what actually holds value right now?
That is the million-dollar question.
Because I remember, just a couple of years ago, the prevailing advice everywhere was just learn prompt engineering. That is the future of work.
Oh, I remember.
There were thousands of courses being sold online, gurus telling us that knowing exactly how to talk to the AI was the new gold rush.
I have to drop a hard truth on that front. The Smart Money Wisdom's playbook is very, very clear on this. Prompt engineering is already dead.
Dead.
Those courses from 2 years ago are completely obsolete today.
Wait, obsolete completely. I have to push back on that just a little bit because I literally just saw a job posting on LinkedIn yesterday offering something like $150,000 for a senior AI prompt engineer. There are definitely still companies throwing money at this.
Sure, but there are always lagging indicators in the corporate world. There are still companies running on legacy software from 1998, too.
Okay, fair point.
But the smart money isn't playing where the puck was. They're playing where it is going. The reason prompt engineering is a dead end is because of the shift to modern agentic AI models.
Let's define that. For those who might not be tracking the daily releases from the big tech labs, when you say agentic, you're talking about AI that acts on its own without needing a human to constantly hit the enter key, right?
Precisely. The older models we all started with, they were essentially just chatbots. They required a human to meticulously craft a prompt, feed it in, read the output, adjust the prompt, and try again. It was a ping-pong match.
Right, lots of back and forth.
And that created a temporary window where being a prompt whisperer was highly valuable. But agentic models do not work like that. You don't prompt them with specific instructions on how to do a task. You just give them a goal.
Just the end state.
Exactly. They reason. They break the goal down into subtasks. They write their own prompts. They use tools. They browse the web. They evaluate their own work. And they loop until the goal is achieved.
So the AI has essentially automated the prompt engineer.
The machine talks to itself better than you ever could.
Wow.
So relying on your ability to craft a clever prompt as your career moat, it's a losing battle.
Yeah.
The smart money realized this early on. They understand that in 2026, you are no longer paid for your process. You are paid for your direction and your liability.
Direction and liability.
Which brings us to what the authors call the new skill hierarchy.
Okay, let's get into this new skill hierarchy. Because if I am not selling my typing, and I'm not selling my coding, and I'm not even selling my incredibly clever AI prompts, what am I actually selling to a client or an employer?
You are selling the one thing a silicon-based intelligence physically cannot provide. To explain this, the Smart Money Wisdoms uses a highly specific legal example.
Okay.
Imagine AI writes a flawless, incredibly complex merger and acquisition contract for a Fortune 500 company. It takes the AI 3 seconds to generate it, but hidden inside page 400 of that contract, there is one single hallucination, one bad line of generated legal text, and that one hallucination ends up costing the company $50 million in a subsequent lawsuit.
Right. And we've all seen the news stories over the last few years about this. Lawyers getting sanctioned by judges because they used an LLM that just completely made up fake case law and they didn't even check it.
Exactly. So the bottleneck is not the writing of the document.
It's the checking.
The bottleneck is the liability.
Cap.
When that $50 million mistake happens, who takes the fall?
The human.
Always. The AI cannot go to jail. The AI cannot be sued for malpractice. The AI cannot stand up in a boardroom, sweat through its suit, and apologize to the shareholders.
Yet you can't fire an algorithm.
Therefore, in a zero marginal cost world, where making the thing costs nothing, the most expensive commodity on earth is accountability.
Accountability. That is the massive shift right there.
Yeah.
The smart money isn't getting paid to make the thing anymore. They're getting paid a premium to verify the thing, to confidently stamp their name and their professional reputation on it, and to carry all of the risk.
Yes, that is the accountability premium. Humans are now only paid to carry risk, not to execute tasks. If you want to survive, you must pivot away from being an obsolete specialist who simply executes a manual process and become an AI-augmented generalist. You sell your judgment.
So if I'm a software developer, I need to stop selling my late-night coding sessions and start selling my willingness to put my neck on the line. I have to say, I have reviewed this architecture, this code is secure, deploy it, and if it breaks, I take responsibility.
Exactly. But it goes even further than just keeping your corporate job. The source file details the ultimate defense playbook for this new economy. It is how you actually thrive when the cost of execution goes to zero.
I am all ears.
It's called the transition to the microenterprise, or the one-person empire. You see, the deflation of human labor is absolutely terrible if you think like an employee. But it is the greatest asymmetric opportunity in human history if you think like an owner.
I really love the sound of that. Paint me a picture of this one-person empire. What does the smart money actually look like on a daily basis when they are doing this?
Visualize this contrast. On one side, you have the exhausted worker we talked about earlier, frantically sprinting on a hamster wheel, trying to manually type 10 times faster just to keep up with the AI.
That's me, or it was me.
Right. But on the other side, you have the smart money individual sitting calmly at a desk. They aren't frantically typing. They are holding a baton.
A baton, like a conductor.
Exactly. They are acting as a strategic orchestrator. They are conducting a symphony. And arrayed in front of them are dozens of autonomous, agentic AI hands, all researching, coding, designing, and writing furiously.
So one single human, managing a fleet of specialized AI agents, can now execute the work of a legacy 50-person corporation.
That is the reality.
That is an incredible visual, a
Right.
strategic orchestrator. So instead of me doing the 10x output myself and just completely burning out my adrenal glands, I am standing on the podium, I wave the baton, I define the desired outcome for the agents, I provide the strategic vision, and they do all the heavy lifting. I am just the final layer of accountability.
Precisely. But to build this true microenterprise, you have to do something psychologically radical.
Mm.
You must permanently sever the link between your time and your value.
Sever the link.
Yeah.
Because, like we said earlier, time is no longer a metric of value if the AI can do the task in 3 seconds. If I bill by the hour, I am literally penalizing myself for using the best tools available.
You're punishing your own efficiency. And this brings us to the concept of building your human moat.
The human moat.
When digital intelligence is perfectly commoditized, when anyone in the world can generate a brilliant MBA-level strategy document for absolute pennies, what is the one thing that cannot be copied, scraped, or automated?
Well, it certainly can't be raw information because the models have already ingested the entire internet. It
Yeah.
can't be analytical frameworks. It has to be me,
Yes.
the actual human being.
Yes. Your physical presence, the verified human touch, your personal brand, and your real relationships. The Smart Money Wisdoms makes it emphatically clear. Trust is the final unautomatable asset.
Trust.
We are drowning in infinite, perfectly generated synthetic content.
Mm.
People do not want more content. They want curation.
Mm.
If people trust your judgment, your curation of all this noise, and your accountability, they will gladly pay you a massive premium.
Even if they know an AI did the heavy lifting to generate the raw material.
Even then. Because they are buying your verified outcome. They are buying exclusive access to your proprietary network and your handshake.
So when content is infinite and totally free to make, trust and curation become the absolute gold standard. That is
Right.
profound. And it completely shifts how I need to view my entire career trajectory. I need to stop trying to be the fastest typist in the room, and I need to start trying to be the most trusted validator in the room.
You are exactly right. And that perfectly lines up with the final verdict from our deep dive today. The authors lay out a very clear career playbook. It consists of 3 critical steps that you need to take immediately.
Okay, I'm ready. I've got my notebook out. What is step 1 to escaping the hamster wheel?
Step 1. Stop selling process. This is the hardest one for a lot of professionals because we derive so much of our ego and our identity from our craft.
Oh, absolutely.
But if your income is currently tied to how many hours you spend physically typing, coding, compiling, or executing manual tasks, your wages are going to deflate to 0. You must pivot your offerings, whether you are an employee renegotiating your role or a freelancer pitching clients, to selling accountability, risk mitigation, and strategy. You sell the outcome, regardless of how long it takes to generate.
That makes total sense. Stop billing for the keystrokes, start billing for the peace of mind. Okay, what is step 2?
Step 2. Become the orchestrator. And this requires a dedicated mindset of continuous unlearning.
Unlearning. That sounds a bit counterintuitive.
It is, but it's essential. You actually have to forget the muscle memory of doing the manual task yourself. When a problem arises, your first instinct is going to be to open a blank document and start typing, because that gives you a dopamine hit of feeling productive.
That is so true. It feels like you're working.
You have to unlearn that instinct. Instead, you must learn how to deploy and manage the autonomous AI agents that do the task for you. You need to view yourself as a manager of a digital staff, not an individual contributor.
Wow. Forget how to do it, learn how to manage the bots that do it. That is a massive psychological shift. You really have to actively fault your own ingrained work ethic. Okay, and step 3.
Step 3. Build the trust mode. You need to invest heavily in the things that simply do not scale digitally: your personal brand, your physical in-person network, and your deep, localized domain expertise. Go to the conferences. Shake the hands. Build a reputation for impeccable judgment. Remember, when digital execution is free, trust and curation are the only things left worth buying.
Okay, I want to speak directly to you listening right now. After going through all of this, after looking at the Jevons paradox and the deflation of labor, I feel so much less crazy. The exhaustion isn't a personal failure. It is a structural trap.
It really is.
And I feel empowered now because I finally understand the game that the smart money is playing. I want you to really reflect on your own life and your own daily grind this week. Has AI actually saved you time at your job? Or has it just forced you to do 10 times more work for the exact same pay while your grocery bill goes up?
It's a tough question.
If you are nodding your head right now, it is time to stop running faster on that electric hamster wheel. You cannot outrun a zero marginal cost intelligence engine. You will just burn out. Step off the wheel, start building your own machine.
That is the perfect takeaway. The transition from executor to orchestrator is the defining career challenge of this decade. But before we wrap up this deep dive, the Smart Money Wisdoms leaves us with one final, incredibly unsettling question from its Devil's Advocate section.
Oh.
It's a macro-level thought. I
Hmm.
want you to mull over and really explore on your own as you think about your career.
I love a good devil's advocate curveball. Lay it on us.
If everyone listens to this deep dive, if we all successfully unlearn our processes, step off the hamster wheel, become strategic orchestrators, and focus solely on building our personal brands and one-person empires, who is actually going to do the hard physical work in our society?
Oh, man.
If everyone is a conductor waving a baton at an orchestra of bots, aren't we just creating a massive, highly fragile economic bubble entirely made up of middlemen while the physical world just sits there waiting to be maintained?
That is a genuinely terrifying thought to leave on. A whole society of well-branded conductors with no actual orchestra, just synthetic agents, while the bridges and the electrical grids and the physical supply chains are screaming for actual human labor.
Incredible. Well, that is certainly something to keep us up at night, but it is all the time we have for today's deep dive. Remember the core lesson here. The traditional link between your time and your value has been permanently severed. Indeed it has. The future belongs to the owners and the orchestrators, not the executors. See you next time.